My name's Andy Carmody. I'm the founder of CS2 and welcome to Everford Radio.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Everford Radio. I've got my man from down under. We're 2 seconds in. I'm already making Australian jokes, man.
I rode my kangaroo here. Good to be here, everybody. Parked outside.
On a world tour, man. You've been making
tour.
the stops all over.
Yep. Yeah.
How's LA treating you so far?
Mate, love it. Yeah, it's good. I've been to a few cities in the States so far and mate, LA's got a really good energy about it. Good people.
Yeah. So I know you've been making the rounds. You're here in LA, you've been in Austin, you've been in New York, and you're a businessman. You're an entrepreneur.
Correct.
I'm curious, what has been your pulse on the entrepreneurial scene in these cities so far in the United States?
It's a good question. It'll vary between the cities that you go to. And I can probably offer a comparison between, say, Australia and the US. And
yeah, that's kind of more the question I was asking.
And I need to be careful because I love Australia, right? I don't want to put it down, okay? But it's going to lean towards America. My first experience in the US for this trip was Austin in Texas, and I thought that had a very, very authentic community sense where people want to help you and want to see you win. So like I said to you earlier, it's like, you speak to someone, you tell them what you do for a living. The first thing they always say is, you should meet this person, or, how can I help, right? Like that's the mentality that I found in Austin, which is really good to see, and a slight, again, not to put Australia down, and a slight comparison, like a slight difference between Australia, right? In Australia, it's more of a very, very beautiful people, but less business orientated, more casual. People here really kind of want to get after it and see you win, whereas Australia, it's kind of like, it's
more competitive.
It's like, I want to see you
like
win.
If you're winning, I'm not winning.
I want to see you do well, but not better than me.
Okay.
That's how it is. And it kind of paints Australia in a bad light, which is not what I'm trying to do, but it's as a general overview and a comparison between Australia and the US, that's the main difference, right? And I found that in all the cities that I've been to. So Austin, Houston, Dallas, Miami's the same, New York, and LA is very similar. I think it varies slightly between cities in terms of like the scale of that.
Sure,
right?
Sure, yeah.
However, that's pretty uniform across the States from what I found, is people are there, they want to help you, they want to see you win, and they actually get a kick out of seeing you do well, which is really good to see. It's a good environment, I think, really good business environment, especially as someone who's so new to the country. And if you want to come here and you want to build a community quickly, having people around you that help you get ahead is super important to that.
Paramount.
Yeah. It's really important.
Well, I want to kind of front load our conversation here today all around entrepreneurship.
Yep.
So you've been, you're leading your business, which we're going to get into later, and you've been coming to the United States and you're checking in all these other cities and connecting with other entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so I think this is a timely conversation for you to kind of like help us shine a light on the state of entrepreneurship here in 2025. Let's say in the United States, but we got an international man of mystery here. So maybe we can think more globally, get our entrepreneur mindset thinking more globally. What do you think is the hardest part about entrepreneurship now that you think our parents' generation didn't have to face?
I can speak to my situation. We're a direct-to-consumer brand, CPG product. I think the biggest challenge that we find is saturation of products, of consumer goods. So people are very, very saturated with advertising and new products every day, which is good because there's a good selection for people to choose from, right? But from a brand perspective, it's hard to differentiate yourself between everybody else. Why are you going to stand out versus this company, right? When there's someone who's probably doing something very similar.
So many options for me to pick from.
So many options. Very, in terms of the America, that's specifically the case because it's such a huge market. It's very competitive. There's a lot of products. Australia less so, but it's also a much smaller market. So you'd probably rather have a crack and a run at the US, which is a bigger market and you can offer more scale. But it's more competitive. So I think for me, that's probably the main hurdle, is differentiating yourself from all these other products.
Yeah.
Then there's obviously, I suppose classic challenges in terms of cost of goods going up. So, in terms like to scale a brand, you might need a lot more money now than you did back then.
Yeah.
Like even speaking to, I've got some mentors who grew, Amazon e-commerce brands, right? And they started with $4,000. This was probably 10 years ago.
Man.
Started with $4,000.
Golden age. Damn.
And, they were turning over 120 mil within probably 4 years. And they're like incredible operators. But I think, maybe the cost of products has increased. Your consumer acquisition has increased. So how much is going to cost you to acquire a customer because they're so saturated? Their challenges. Yeah.
What do you think is maybe something, thinking about, by chance, were your parents entrepreneurs? Or
in a way. So both own their own businesses. Dad's a builder, mum's an interior designer.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So with your parents in mind and their small businesses, what do you think if they were to step into the entrepreneurial space today, what advantage do you think, if any, they would have coming into a marketplace now so modern and so saturated?
Yeah. I think personability. If you take everything else out of it that you need to know now in terms of media buying or product growth, public relations and stuff like that, that's all learnable. But having a personable element to you and interacting with people, where I think maybe young people focus too much on, I want to get there right now and I want to scale to this size this quickly. It's like, all right, well, maybe slow down, think about what you're trying to build and who you're trying to help, and have a personable element to it. I think that is, so say you take my parents or your parents, I think they would maybe be more likely inclined to have that personability and small business mindset, which is important, right? Like you kind of want a big business with the mindset of a small business, What
does that look like? What does that feel like to you?
It feels like, being a front-facing founder, being in front of your customer, connecting with them, asking them what they want, where we might be going wrong, having that connection to them. Do you know what I mean? And again, that sort of ties back into the differentiation between your product and everybody else's. If they feel like they're connected to me as a founder or the brand, then they're going to believe in it and they're going to want to, be involved, right? It's sort of
a little bit more relatable, a little bit more real, more humanized, right?
Exactly right. Like rather than, so we have some, I'll give you an example. Like we have some ambassadors on board with the brand who, they're two boys who used to play for the Jets in New York. And when I was talking to them to come on board with the brand, one of the things that they'd mentioned was they liked the personability of dealing with me as a founder. So they were speaking with another supplements brand who has really good products, but they kind of felt like another number to them.
Yeah.
Whereas
another cog in the machine.
Yeah. And the benefit of being, maybe a smaller business in those situations is that they're dealing with me, like they really feel like part of the team. So as you grow and as you scale as a business, I think keeping that personability is really important. If you can, like it does get hard when you do scale and you need people under you, and you can't do everything.
You can't always be touchable.
You can't be always touchable, right? Like there's only so many hours in the day, and you need to still prioritize the business. But where you can, I think keep that connectivity and that personability, because people like I said, in America, people want to see you win. If they know you and they've got that sort of connection to you, I think it's really valuable.
What is maybe a litmus test, if you will, that the young entrepreneur can keep in mind right now?
What's a litmus test? Is that an American thing?
I've never been asked this. I just assumed everyone knew it. So like a gauge, like how can we test to kind of see where we're at? Like a measure of am I too accessible in my business, or am I like that Goldilocks? Am I that sweet spot to where I'm not losing that personable touch, but also I'm still able to be the founder and be the business owner and run the business kind of thing.
So how do you measure that?
Yeah, how do I know?
Or how do you do things to maybe keep that, but still be able to run everything
better?
Yeah, we'll do
like
that one.
Yeah.
So I think there's strategies that you can use to do that. So, for example, when someone buys your product, if you're a D2C brand or whatever it is, someone buys your product, have an email system that goes out from your personal account, from you, saying thank you. This is what we do. This is what we believe in. Thank you for supporting us, right? And it comes from Andy Carmody, right? Like that keeps some personability to it, which doesn't take a lot of time. You set it up,
That's a system.
It's a system,
Set it
right?
up,
It doesn't
forget
take a lot of time. You can set it up, but it still gives that personable aspect to it. I think that which caters to more of a mass audience and like a system. But then if you've got people that you want to get on board with the brand, like an ambassador, for example, do those meetings yourself. Like make time for them still, because I see. Your role as a founder is to be selling the dream, selling the vision, right? If you get your systems in place that are running smoothly and everything's operating, then your role is to grow the business and be the face of it, right? So you really should be prioritizing that time in meeting with people and being in front of them.
They say what as a founder, you're supposed to work on the business, not in the business after a certain point.
Exactly right. Yeah. And it's hard, right? Because at the start, you don't have a lot of money. You got no money.
You're in it. You're in
it. Especially if you're bootstrapping a brand, it's all your money you're putting into it. You have to do everything. So you have to find a balance between, and it just comes down to work and long hours really, because you need to find a balance between doing everything, which is like super unglamorous. You're sitting in a dark room a lot of the time on your laptop, and that's, probably 9-8 hours of the day.
Yeah.
And then you need to find time to do everything else on top of that. And then once you start to grow and you're earning a little bit more money, and you might be able to allocate a budget towards a graphic designer or, an ads guy, then you kind of start to free up time, which you can allocate to the, that core role of a founder. Yeah. But it takes time.
Yeah. Do you think, is it possible now in 2025, in the modern day, with all the access we have to internet, tools, AI, Canva, Photoshop, I mean, you name it, I feel like part of me wants to say, yes, we have an advantage now to where we can start already kind of outsourcing, if you will, even delegating a lot of those initial tasks? Or is it too soon? Should the founder always only ever be everything up to a certain point, up to a certain time period?
I think this ties into AI and automating roles, right? Which I'm not good at, so I can't really speak to that. But I think in the simplest way possible, the founder should, to an extent, do all those roles so they understand how to do it. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to freeing up time and then being able to really grow the business once your structures and your systems are in place, then start to delegate them. But you got to find good people, because it's like it's a balance between freeing up your time, but keeping the quality of what you're trying to do. And no one's going to believe in your vision as much as you do, right? Like that's the reality of it. So you need to find people who are close to that, or who are motivated and who believe in what you're doing and who are going to uphold that quality. Like that's hard to do. To find the right staff is a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
But once you do, you hold on to them and you incentivize them. But I think that's what you need to do. Like keep your costs lean and stay involved with everything so you understand the processes, and then once you've got the facilities and the structure to delegate to the right people, that's when you do it. Yeah.
Well said, man. Well said. Do you think entrepreneurship ever truly changes in terms of the business dynamics, like what it actually means, what it looks like, feels like to be an entrepreneur? Or does it just get new types of players trying to solve the same problems?
I think it changes business to business, right? Like it depends what you're doing. And I think you need to pivot, like there's always going to be situations that come up and you're like, oh, well, this isn't working and I need to change it, right? So you have to be pretty adaptable. But the general principle, I think, is that problem solving. It's like, where can I solve a problem for a lot of people? How do I do it more effectively? And then constantly evaluating on how to do it more effectively, because your solution now to whatever the problem is might be different in 5 years, or it might be different in 2 months, right? So it's constantly sort of adapting your approach to best serve your audience or your consumers.
Yeah.
So for us, we're a sleep vitamin, right? And we've done a lot of research and have a lot of, I suppose, medical minds into the ingredients that we have in it. So right now we know that that's super effective in terms of what we're trying to do, but maybe there's something new that pops up in a year, right? So you evaluate it constantly and adapt it to, I suppose, stay relevant and keep delivering that service to people.
Right, yeah.
Would be my perspective on it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you got to have blinders on if you want to get anything done, if you want to build anything, but you also have to incorporate some kind of periodization, some regularity of, okay, let me put off the blinders, step back and kind of like take in the whole landscape again.
Which is
and
hard.
then get back to work.
It's hard, right? Because you sit there and you're so involved in it, right? And as someone who, you know, owns the business or a founder of the business, you're so in love with your product and your vision that you can get clouded. Yeah. You know, like you've got this certain idea
and develop a bias too.
Yeah, really. Without a doubt, which is hard. And I'm guilty of it for sure.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, you know, you sit there and you're like, oh, I love this. This is going to work. But it's like, it works for me. But from a business perspective, is this going to work for everybody? Mm-hmm. So you do have to be able to step away and be like, you know, am I doing the right thing?
Get real. Yeah. Am I just married to this because I had an idea once and I love it? Or am I actually really solving the problem that I set out to solve?
Exactly right. So, you know, it's a balance between being really in love with what you do, because that's super important. Like, it's not going to work if you don't love it, because it's hard. And being able to adapt if you need to, you know, I suppose better suit people.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you, man? Have you always been an entrepreneur, or what did you do before? And if you weren't always working for yourself, what was the thing, the moment, the emotion that made you jump ship?
It's fun. It's a good story, actually.
All right, this is story time. Let's go.
So I haven't always worked for myself. I've always wanted to. Didn't know what it was going to be. You know, haven't grown up being like, I want to own a vitamin business, right? I just knew that the freedom that you can get and the lifestyle that you can live if your business works, that's what I wanted to do.
If your business works,
right? That's what I wanted to do. But I didn't know what that was. And it's obviously only come sort of in the last couple of years in terms of what we're doing now. But my background is commercial property. So I was at a company called JLL, which is actually headquartered here in Chicago.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know that name.
Commercial property. Yeah. So I started in property. Probably like a lot of people grew up and I was like, I want to be a property developer. You know, like that's where all the money is, right? So then I went to commercial property. I was an agent. So I was selling and leasing, you know, logistics facilities around Australia. So, you know, like an Amazon warehouse and things like that. So I got a sort of a good commercial perspective on things. And I loved it. It was really good, like some really good years of my life. But you do have to sort of, one, you're working for somebody else, which is, you know, it's to some people that's awesome and that's fine. But for me, I'd never really sort of pictured that long term. And two, you know, for that particular role, you have to be on the ball, on the phones all the time, right? Which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're, you know, when I'm 40, I'd rather have built sort of value in something and retained value in that than having to constantly generate new income based on, you know, my own output.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Your freedom back. Yeah.
It gets you some of your freedom back. So it was a funny, I suppose, collection of events that led me to what I'm doing now. I resigned from property. I just knew I didn't want to do it anymore, and I just resigned.
Take us to that moment. Was it did something happen and you're like, that's it, I'm out? Or was it like, all right, you know what? I can kind of see this being the end of my journey. I'm going to develop an exit strategy in a month,
a combination
6
of
months.
both. So I was kind of on the way out for probably about a year, and I left. I was at JLL for probably 4 or 5 years. Then I left to a company called Colliers, which is same industry, just different brand. And I wasn't enjoying there, probably because I was more on the out. You know, I was like, this isn't for me. You know, I'm not really putting the effort in. I don't love it. Right. So there was, I suppose, a final ditch attempt to convince myself that I was done by moving companies. I was like, am I getting stagnant here? Is it just this business?
That's a fair test. Yeah.
It's a fair test.
Am I just feeling some kind of way?
Do
or
I need
is
to
it
change
just
my scenery?
Different employer?
Yeah. Is that the issue? So I did that. We're still not enjoying it. So that was the catalyst to resign, right? And then I left. I took probably a couple of months off not doing anything. And then, this is a pretty wild story, but I had a motorbike accident in Indonesia. This was 18 months ago. And it was quite bad. So I fractured my skull, brain bleed, broke my collarbone, my scapula, 2 ribs, and a collapsed lung. And it was quite a confronting time, because if situations were different, I wouldn't be sitting here. That's kind of where like the accident was in terms of injuries to my body, right? So
it's a pretty big awakening moment.
It's a really big awakening moment. And, you know, there were points there where I was lying in a Indonesian hospital where the care is non-existent, right? And, you know, I think at one point one of the surgeons walked in and doesn't really speak much English, but I heard brain surgery, right? And this is in a foreign country. I didn't have my friends with me, and I was like, what popped into my head was, I'm never going to see my nephews again. Like that's what popped into my mind. And luckily I didn't need that, and I've made a full recovery. But the perspective that a situation like that gives you in terms of what's really important in your life, like when you're in those situations, the only thing you think about is your family. Everything else kind of fades off, which is a really nice perspective to have. You need that motivation and you need like a drive to do well, but keep, I suppose, what's important front of mind.
It kind of sucks, in order for us to really get that clarity as to what we want and what matters, we have to be right at the edge of our own destruction.
100%. And I'm a big believer in when you're not on the right path, or maybe if you're straying down, somewhere where you're not supposed to go. Not that I was, bad, but I was probably partying too much at the time, making bad decisions, especially, at that time. It's like maybe the universe gives you a correction to sort of push you back on the right track, right? And after the accident, a lot of my friends were like, "Oh man, I'm really sorry that this happened to you." I'm like, "I'm not, to be honest with you. Like, I know it sucks."
So you were grateful for it.
I was like, yeah, I was grateful for it. I'm like, I probably needed this. The perspective it's given me is incredible. Like in a way, I saw that as a second chance. So you don't want to waste time. Like you are here once, and it can be over like that, which is quite I suppose a hard pill to swallow to realize that, but it's necessary, right? And like. People learn a lot about themselves in those situations where you are, like you said, you're really pushed to the edge, and I think it's beneficial. Not saying everyone needs to go get on a motorbike and have an accident.
How many people are buying flights to Indonesia right now, renting a bike?
I need a revelation. All right, let's go. But it's like, coincidentally, it's like you go through those situations and you're like, all right, this is what matters. Maybe we sort of alter our path to go down this different direction. So
you had that accident, and that was kind of the icing on the cake, proverbial cake to go, I'm not spending my professional career how I want. Let me make a change.
But it's professional career, it's life, it's everything. It's like, look, I've got a second chance here. How am I going to spend it? What's important to me? I could be dead, realistically. How do I want my life to look? Who do I want to provide for? What's important? And it gives you a good motivation to really work on something that you care about. I personally find it very difficult to do things that I don't like, which I know is like everybody. But if I don't like something, I'm really not motivated for it. So it teaches you to put time and energy into things that you love. Not that every day is going to be perfect. Like there are certainly challenges and things like that. But when you don't love what you do, everything that goes wrong is an excuse why you shouldn't be doing it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Rather than a speed bump or, a roadblock or whatever, it's an excuse why you shouldn't be doing it. So, and it's a luxury to be in a position to be able to choose to do something that you love, because I know that a lot of people don't have that luxury, right? Like you've got kids, you've got a family that you need to look after, and you can't just walk away. You can't just resign from your job like I did. I was young, there's nobody counting on me, so it was the perfect time to do it.
Yeah.
But, if you can, I think it does put a good perspective on where to spend your time, and things like that.
It really does. It really does. It's funny timing. I think over this past weekend, as we're recording, I found this old video, before the podcast, I ran a YouTube channel, and I found this old video of my last day at my corporate job.
Yeah. And I saw that on Instagram, actually.
And so I pulled a little clip from it, and it was pretty wild. Like I remember going back to that moment. And at the time, my wife hated me for it. Because we had a plan, and like I deviated from the plan. But I was like, baby, blah, 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 overworked, undervalued. I can do my own thing. Let me do my own thing.
Yep.
So we agreed on develop a 6-month exit strategy.
Okay. And you were married at the time?
I just got married.
Just got married.
I'd been married for 8 months, maybe.
Yeah.
This is 2017. And I was like, okay, all right, cool, got it. So I began to kind of develop my exit strategy, doing some side health coaching, started the podcast, began to grow some stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then something happened. I came back to work one day, I think after we took our honeymoon, a late honeymoon.
Yeah.
And I came back and just like, I sat down in front of my superior at the time.
Yeah.
My boss. And they made these choices of things while I was
surrounding
away.
your career and your role?
Surrounding kind of like how they wanted like the department. I was a clinical health coach, and I ran the wellness department. I oversaw this whole department. And I worked directly with our chief medical officer. It was a concierge medical practice. And so we came up with a plan on how we wanted the wellness department and the clinical office, basically the coaches and the doctors, to work together. I thought we're on the same page. I came back, they completely went the other direction. And like undermined me and just made me feel undervalued, and like even brought in this other person to kind of like step on my toes a little bit. And now
it's a horrible feeling.
Now I'm just sounding bitter, but it was my reality. And in that moment, I was like, hell no. There's no way I'm waiting 6 months to take my life back and to build a future for myself, for my now growing family. And I gave my notice right then and there. I came home. I was like, I just gave my 30 days. She's like, what happened to 6 months? She was so pissed at me. I was like, every fiber of my being in that meeting when he was talking to me, like it took everything I had not to just like flip up the table and storm out. Just like, you know, here's my corporate card. Fuck you. And so I was just like, here's my notice. I'm out.
Mate, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's a great lesson, right? Like you can sit here and you can plan and you can be like, this is what we're going to do. All right, we're going to start here. And then you can write a step-by-step thing to get here. But and you do need to do that to an extent, because you have to have some sort of roadmap on where you want to get to, right? And a target to hit. But the chances of that plan going exactly how you've written it is zero. Like it just never happens, right? Like things happen, things change. That's why you have to be constantly adapting. And I think that was a good decision. You know, like you do need to keep, like I know that you work for somebody else and you know, they've got a business to run, but you have value as a person, you know, and if you feel like you're getting stepped on or, you know, worked over or even, you know, exploited in a way, it's like you need to prioritize yourself.
And I think especially when, you know, we're both in like now kind of like the human optimization, health, wellness. And so I think maybe we're a little bit biased here, but when we're talking about your health, your vitality, your longevity, your quality of life, it's so much more meaningful. And for me personally, at the time, the biggest thing that kind of sent me over the edge was the way that they wanted to go with how we were running these programs. I was like, that doesn't work. Like it doesn't work. You're not going to get people to get on board. People aren't going to be adherent. You're just going to be slapping Band-Aid on after Band-Aid after Band-Aid. I'm like, I know my approach and the approach that I've developed with my other team. Like this is how we get behavior change. This is how we get people to take a walk, go to the gym, put down the cheeseburger, pick up a salad, you know, insert any modification for a healthy lifestyle here. And I was like, this is sick care. This is sick care. This is not getting better care. And so I was like, it's too personal for me. And I give too much of a shit. And so I'm going to go out and I'm actually going to like, if I fail and if it doesn't work, at least I know I did it my way. And then I'm not stuck into some system.
And it's like, you know, you care about what you do. You're passionate about it. You know, you can't sit there.
I'm getting heated.
You know, you can't sit there and be part of something that's not good for people, especially if you're so involved and you know that's not going to work. You know, so sometimes, and it's a hard decision to make, sometimes you can't change situations and you can't change people. And I've had a lot of those situations in my life, and you do just have to cut it, walk away, you know? For your own peace of mind.
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes the best thing you can do for your own peace of mind and your business is to walk away.
Which is hard because, I mean, sometimes it feels like quitting.
Many times.
Many times it feels like quitting, but, you know, it's like holding onto the hot coal. You're the only one who gets burnt.
Ooh.
You know, it's...
That's so true.
Bring all these Australian things over. But it's like... And it is hard. You know, I've had situations in the past with other, you know, maybe a business partner before I started this business, right? And it's where... say they're a friend first. And maybe they didn't treat you in a certain situation, and it's like you're trying to hold on to it, and you're trying to, you know, either fix the friendship or, you know, fix the business relationship. But people can't be changed. You know, you can sit there and you can try, and you're going to waste a lot of time doing it. So for you as a person, it's usually better off to maybe just cut it, which is a hard decision, and it is a selfish decision. But at the end of the day, you do have to, you know, put yourself first. You know, where you can, always look after people and do the right thing by people, but at times, you know, you have to sort of walk away.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it feels like in those moments, especially in business, like you're letting yourself down, you're letting your team down, maybe you're letting even your future, your financial future down. But that's, I think, I've only learned this 7 years now into my entrepreneurial journey, is the moment when you can just like let it go. And maybe it is technically a failure. But you also have the power and now the knowledge to just go start again. You're not dependent on 100%. Anybody else. So like if you've proven to yourself that you can make anything work once, That doesn't guarantee success every time,
Yeah.
but it does guarantee when you make a choice
Yeah.
to do something, to create something, to keep a commitment and a promise to yourself, to turn nothing into something,
Yeah.
you can do it again.
100%.
You can do it again.
And it's failing forward. You know, like that's and failing's hard, right? Like especially when you start in any kind of journey, it's like you want to do well. Everybody no one wants to fail, right? But you learn more out of failures than you do, I think, wins, you know, and you don't know everything when you start. So the quicker you can fail and figure things out on what not to do is a good thing. It's a benefit.
Yeah. What do they say? Fail fast and fail forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm a big believer of that. It's like you don't know what you don't know and you learn more when you fail. So you have to try. You have to go and put yourself in those positions, right, to fail. And you can't be scared of failure, but be willing to fail, like for sure, you know, because you learn a lot from it.
All right. So now I have to ask, take us to your biggest failure in your entrepreneurial journey. If you can share, if you can talk about it.
Yeah, no, I'll think.
What was the biggest failure you have had in your entrepreneurial journey? And what was the lesson you learned because of it?
Okay, I've got one. First of all, I don't think I've made my biggest one yet. I think it's probably still coming.
He kind of seems eerily excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, shit. I mean, let's happen it sooner rather than later, right?
Bring it on, family.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like I know I'm going to make more mistakes for sure, but it's you keep going. You know, like you just keep pushing forward and you learn from it. But again, I don't know who's going to be watching this podcast, so I got to be careful. But I did have a business before I started this, which was in sort of like a housing provider in Australia.
Okay.
And through that, and I had two business partners with that business. Jeez, I hope they're not going to watch this. But I had two business partners.
You can skip around anything you don't want to.
I had two business partners in that business who were my friends at the time, still are. You know, like I have tried to protect that situation. And we got into some capital raising business where we would introduce capital from private clients, funds and stuff to a client of mine that I had in property to help him scale his property business. And we were doing it all together. And this is my biggest mistake so far. We had agreed certain terms for that sort of exchange, right? In terms of what each of us would get. They were my friends and I trusted them to do the right thing.
Like I'm bringing this to the table, you're bringing this to the table. Yeah. If it all comes together and we all, kind of succeed, like here's
what we're going to get out
portion.
Of it. Okay. Exactly right. Yeah. And didn't get it agreed on paper until the end of the deal, which was a big lesson in terms of, look, I'd love to trust people and I am a very trusting person, but sometimes you do have to make sure that you get things agreed. And at the end, once the deal was done, they changed the terms. Oh, so it's disappointing and it's a shame coming from, I suppose, a friendship perspective. Yeah. But the lesson is protect yourself, try and be trusting to people. Like don't lose that trusting element because you don't want to turn into a bad person or a cynic, right? Like
no, it just turns you bitter.
And you don't want that. And that's the thing. It's like this is a situation where you just have to walk away. You just have to cut it and you have to walk away. Yep. Look, it was an expensive mistake. I won't do it again. I won't put myself in that position again. And you learn from it and you move on. And I'm still friends with the guys, like it's disappointing the way that it was handled. They know that I feel this way. So, but look, they have to look after themselves too. Like it's a matter of perspective in a way. Like that, this is my view. Maybe they share a different view. But that was a big lesson.
Can I share a little insight on that?
Yeah, of course.
I've been in some similar situations to where you think you're all on the same page.
Yeah.
The deal goes through, the project goes through. Yeah. And then, you didn't get anything in writing because we're all friends here. Yeah. We're all fam. And then
you'd like to believe it.
You like to believe it. Yeah. And then lo and behold, at the end of the day, you're left with the short end of the stick or no part of the stick at all.
Yeah.
I've been there. Besides kind of like the stinging that happens in the beginning, the biggest lesson I walked away from in those situations was honestly this newfound sense and or like a validation of my value.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, usually in those situations, it was like bigger deals. It was like something more than I could offer on my own. Yeah. Hence the kind of like collaboration. Yeah. So it was like a bigger project, bigger deal, bigger payoff.
Yeah.
And when it didn't go through, I was like, oh, okay, ouch. But also people out there view me at that dollar point, at that leverage point.
Yeah.
So, okay, I can just go out and just recreate to a certain degree this same value, the same opportunity, the same project, the same service. And now I know what people are willing to pay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sometimes hard, which I'm glad that you came out of that situation with that view, right? Because if you're in a situation where maybe somebody else who you're doing business with is telling you you're worth this, but you know that you're worth this, like higher.
That's how you know you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's like you need to, I suppose, recognize your value, which is hard in those situations because sometimes you're like, maybe I'm not worth this, right? Like you do have a bit of self-doubt there. And I know for a fact in my situation, that deal would not have happened without them either, right? So like you have to look at it fairly,
fair. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I brought a certain amount of value, but that deal wouldn't have happened without those guys either. So it's not all me, but you know, maybe your value is more than they're perceiving, right? So
good point.
It's good that you identified that because I think maybe some people will be like, well, maybe I'm not worth what I think I am.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be arrogant and think that you're worth more than you are, but uphold your value and sort of stick with it.
And also, last thing I'll add on to this before moving on is even when it stings and even when you're like, guys, what the hell? Like we all said we're going to do this and that's not what happened.
Yeah.
Even in those situations, and this is going to be very hard to do.
Yeah.
Do not burn a bridge.
Yeah.
Do not burn a bridge. I can't tell you how many times I have come back to situations, come back to people, and I'm like, all right, here we go. All right. I remember how things went last time.
Yeah.
But you know what? I remember my integrity last time. And now I kind of feel like we're going in and I have the upper hand now. Yeah. Which I don't want to say and come across in like a power or ego trip kind of way, but there is just immense value in having, no matter how hard that lesson is, to not burn the bridge.
Absolutely.
Don't forget, but just don't burn the bridge.
I think you don't want to limit yourself in terms of who you can interact with. Like that's important. You never know when you're going to run into somebody again, but be aware of what people are like. That's it. You know, like learn fast. And it's good. It's like, I'd rather that issue or whatever issues anybody's facing, rather it happen now. So you don't get further into the process or down the track and that you've invested more time, money or effort and then it happens, right? Yeah. So it's good that it happens at whatever time it is. It's better than it's later. Yeah. And just be aware of what people are like. Yeah. Maybe still deal with them, but just be, learn from whatever happened and be careful.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, man. I found this quote. I couldn't find the source, but I was just looking up quotes about entrepreneurship, and I love this one. The best way to predict the future is to create it.
That's good. I like that.
So I'm curious, what's your take on that? What mistakes do you think most entrepreneurs are making right now while trying to create their own future?
Maybe being, like we said earlier, too in love and not willing to pivot potentially. So if you're
in love with their business,
or idea, I heard something this morning actually, and it was from, I can't remember what the guy's name is, but it was from, he used to be the CEO of Netflix, and it was fail fast and fail a lot, right? So you might have this exceptional idea that you think is going to work, right? And then you go and invest heaps of time and money and any energy into it. You're like, all right, I need this amount. I need $1 million to start this business, and I need this many staff to do it. But you haven't figured out whether the product's going to work yet.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So fail fast and again, like fail forward. So maybe the most cost-effective way to figure out whether your product is going to work, figure out whatever that is, figure out if it's actually going to work before putting the time and resources into it. Yeah. Maybe,
absolutely.
I think, because you can it's like we were talking about earlier, you can get so in love with your vision and so in love with your product. And I am too, like I'm guilty of it, right? And
you should be.
And you need a bit of that too, but you need to be adaptable and open to pivoting, right? So like figure out if it's going to work the cheapest way possible. Yeah. If it's not, and if you don't think it's going to work, cut your losses and move on, right?
Take that, rewind it, go back, just loop it. Like just put that mantra, in your AirPod, on your mirror. Like that's so viable, man. You've mentioned this a couple of times, actually, just in your last statement about pivoting. How do you know when to pivot versus when to push through an obstacle?
It's a really good question. And it's hard to know, right? Because when something's not working, you can't just stop straight away because it might not be the product, or it might be something else that's sort of, or you might even be giving yourself an excuse to stop because it's hard, which is not okay either. You know, you need to, there are going to be shit days. You need to push through those shit days, and you don't, because things are hard, it's not an excuse to stop. So it's a hard distinction to make. I think it takes time. You know, if something's not working and you know that you've tried and you know that you've given everything to make it work, not just because you're not just stopping because it's hard, you know, you've exhausted all your efforts in terms of trying to make it work, maybe that's when you reevaluate it or reevaluate your approach. I guess it's case by case in terms of what you're doing, but, you know, for our situation, it's like we're a sleep vitamin. It's a very, very simple business structure. You know, we help people fall asleep faster and wake up better. Right. And we know the product does that. So if it's not fulfilling what we're trying to do, then there's probably an issue elsewhere outside of the product.
Okay.
Whether it's the delivery, advertising. So maybe like you look at those things before stopping, and that's where you pivot, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think it's case by case, but yeah, it's putting in the effort that you need to know that you've done everything to make it work. And then reevaluating, I think. If that hasn't changed.
You're mirroring back something else again for me in my entrepreneurial journey. I feel like the pivot aspect is in front of us sooner and more often than we often want to admit, because to your point, you know, we're so in love with the original concept.
For sure.
You know, case in point, my podcast production company, Operation Podcast, I first started off as courses.
Yeah.
I created courses. I was always the podcast guy. People came to me like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Like years ago. So I created courses. The courses turned into production company. Like I don't want to do it. Can you just do it for me? So, okay, cool. We record, edit, launch, do all this stuff. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, we're so good at creating podcasts. Let's just keep doing that. And then like the studios introduced like 2 years ago. And then the studios took off. And I was so in love with the creation aspect of new podcasts and editing content, you know, working with my team on like turning someone's vision into a tangible thing, you know, like, a post.
And it's a rewarding thing to do,
It's so rewarding. I was like, this is so like cool and creative and boom and amazing. And I was trying so hard to stay fixated on that and grow the production side when the studio stuff was just like leaps and bounds. Shooting. And I was like, literally last year, it took me a year to finally come to terms and just go like, Chase, you have a portion of business that is really working. This other portion, you can still do it, but you're sacrificing unnecessarily. Yep. So when I kind of let go of like, oh, but it's my baby, it's my favorite thing. I let go of that and kind of just renegotiated my relationship with it. Yeah. I was still able to keep that portion, but allow the business to thrive in other ways. Yeah.
And that's hard to do because you do love it, right? And I think in any sort of journey, there are going to be other opportunities that pop up to either pivot or expand or do something different, right? And I believe that it's a balance between you need to make the right decision in terms of the direction that you're going to go, because diluted focus gives diluted results. You can't do everything, and I've been guilty of that before. So you do need to, in a way, block out the noise. You know, like there are opportunities everywhere, and I've been guilty of where it's like, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then, you know, you're splitting your day into 6 different portions and nothing's getting done.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. So you do need to pigeonhole yourself in a way, but then maybe along that journey, right, along that sort of specific direction that you're taking, be willing to recognize what's working and what's not, or maybe a different direction where you can go down. And leverage off that. Or maybe it's not the right direction, but you just got to be able to identify that. And that's hard. Yep. Like that is really hard. Yeah. And I suppose the metric of it, right, is which can make it easy if you've got that data, is like, where am I making the most money? Yeah. You know, where am I putting 20% of my effort to get 80% of the profit? And then it's that 80-20 rule. And then you flip it, right? Yeah. And that, I suppose in case by case, it's like if you're earning more money in that avenue, it's easy to tell. But if you're not, but there's a potential for it, it's harder.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. I was talking to you about my brother earlier and like business stuff. And I had a conversation with him, I guess it was like 2 Christmases ago. But when I was kind of coming to terms with this unwanted pivot in my business.
Yeah. It's hard.
And he was like, Chase, you know what? Like, or I think he said it or I said it out loud. One of the two. He'll probably try to take credit for it, but just like basically
like a brother.
Yeah, yeah, that was me. I'm definitely smarter. Sometimes passion doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
And that was like a bitter pill to swallow. I think especially in this day and age, so many entrepreneurs are in the creative space.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form, this is a part of your business plan.
Yeah.
Your phone, social media, in some capacity, it has to be. So therefore, I think you or very closely on your team, you've got some kind of creative outlet and a passion project. So once I kind of realized, passion doesn't always pay the bills, but then to your point, which I think is so beautifully said, leaning in to what is working in the business can leverage you future opportunities to come back to that passion. And
Absolutely.
You've got the cash flow to support it.
100%.
Or even just time, not even money.
And maybe within the business, again, it's case by case, but it's like, say you've got a portion of your business which you do, and it's like, it's the editing stuff, right? And it's the production, right? It's like maybe for your role as a founder is to grow the business. And if you grow it to a point where it's sustainable and you don't need to be, I suppose, more hands-on with that aspect of it, then you can come back to what you do love doing.
Right.
Potentially. I guess it's I suppose it's different on anyone's situations, but the opportunity is there because it's still so ingrained in the core direction of what you're trying to do. Like it's not like they're two completely separate businesses that you need to devote 2 sections of your brain to. It's like when you're thinking about your business, it's all the one. It's like a different segment. It's like graphic design in my business. It's like product design versus ads. Still the same business, different aspects.
Yeah.
So you can still, that's not diluting your focus. You can still build, go in the right direction and still do those two things. But maybe one needs more
like a little,
attention at the time.
Divide and conquer. Kind of thing.
Exactly right. And you prioritize what you need to at the time in terms of what's best for the business. Yeah. Maybe not what's best for you because you might love this, but it's what's best for the business at the time.
I got one more question to kind of wrap up this entrepreneur masterclass section here, man, before we get into kind of what your baby is these days.
Yeah.
If you had to start from scratch, like today, burn the boats, all over, done. Tomorrow you wake up and you're like starting a new business with no connections, no resources, no nothing. It's just you and your past experiences in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
What would be your first 3 moves?
Would I be starting the same business again?
Let's say no.
No?
Or it's introducing too many different variables. Let's say yes. So let's say you want to start your business over again, but only using your past experiences, no new connections, no nothing.
Yeah.
What are your first 3 moves?
What I would do, perfect the product, number 1. So in my situation, we've put a lot of time and money into making sure this product is perfect, right? But that's taken a long time. So I think number 1, and we've also been trying to do too much at the same time. So we're trying to, at the start we were, doing the product, sorting out logistics, 3PLs, warehousing, distribution, and manufacturing. It's like you're doing it all at once, and that's fine. Like you need to do that at the start, but figure out the product first. Figure out your service, number 1. Keep that the core of your business. Then number 2, I would probably start to delegate a little bit more.
I was wondering if that was going to come up. Yeah.
Because I know now sort of, I suppose, in a way how to do it, but at the start I didn't, right? And
you didn't know how to ask for help.
And you didn't know how to ask for help. Right? So,
or what to get help for, maybe.
Exactly right. And you can spend so much, and that's the lesson that I've learned. It's not that I've figured out how to do everything, right? So the lesson that I've learned is that you can spend so much time trying to figure something out and not do it the best way possible, or you can save time and get somebody who does.
Yeah.
And it's a cost. Yeah. It is a cost, but I think it's worthwhile. It's
but a cost in a few different ways, right? It could be literally a cost of maybe you're paying for a consultant, someone who knows these things, or finding somebody that, I'm a big fan of the barter system. Like, hey, again, to an earlier point, make sure you get it in writing, or equal terms. But like, I'm coming to the table with this. I recognize you have that value. If we put our powers together and turn this into what I think it could be, like, here's the future payoff for both of us kind of thing. Yeah,
that's what I'd do. So to recap, perfect your product, find a good team find a good team to scale with quickly, and then put your time and resources into being a front-facing founder, what I'm doing now. That's I think the different, there's nuances in that in terms of like,
sure,
you know, you get better at dealing with manufacturers and negotiating prices. It's like, you know, you go to them with a formulation and then you get a price from that and then maybe it needs to change later and you lose a bit of leverage with them. So there are little nuances, but, you know, as I suppose a summary, perfect your product, get a good team behind you and build and put more time into being like the face and scaling the business is what I would do.
Words of wisdom there, man. Words of wisdom. I mean, it's always hindsight's 20/20, right? I knew then what I know now.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, it's not to say that it's not going to work because you don't know what you're doing. It just might take a little bit longer. You know, you have to fail and you have to sort of trip and stumble, but you learn as you go and you just keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
You don't need to know everything at the start. Like
there's no way you can.
Yeah, there's no way you can. It's like, that's why a lot of people, I think, don't start because they don't know what they're doing. But it's like, you kind of don't need to know, right? Like there's resources and there's blueprints out there, right? That in most situations or in most business models that you can, you know, start with to get some sort of idea, and then you just start. Yeah. And you'll figure it out. And I tell you what, you're going to mess up. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. But you're moving forward and at least you're doing something. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting there waiting for the right time, which is never going to happen. And
here's the truth. I'm looking right in the camera to say this very bluntly. No one knows what they're doing. We don't know what we're doing. We're figuring out every damn day. We just get better daily and making it look like we know what we're doing. At least in my experience.
I agree.
I'm an actual idiot. I'm an actual idiot.
I know nothing.
I know nothing. I'm just a guy who figured out how to record himself.
It's a series of like, it's constant failures.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And then you just don't make that mistake again. But it's not like the failures stop. They just probably get less frequent.
And you develop a better relationship with failure.
Yeah.
And you begin to completely change your association to failure.
Yeah.
I no longer have, I don't know if you can relate. Like I have, well, now I'm in a little bit of a different bracket because I just had a kid.
Yeah.
And so now it's like this, wanting to provide a little bit more. And I've got that aspect. But like I truly have zero fear of failure.
Yeah.
Because I know if like, God forbid, this whole thing burns down tomorrow, again, like I said earlier, I have proven to myself that when I make a choice to put me first and to build my life and my dreams and to provide for my family and to put one foot in front of the other towards my area of expertise and to create and have something of value, like I can do it.
You can do it. And it's a belief in yourself, which is so important. And just because something is scary or nerve-wracking or is no excuse not to do it, I think it's more of a reason to do it. Otherwise, you're going to stay in the same place, for the rest of your life. You need to push yourself in those uncomfortable situations and I suppose learn from them. But there's always going to be those situations, right? So you need to develop that habit of just doing it and not sort of, be calculated and, think about what your decisions you're making, but like go into these things and do it,
The moment you can relinquish the hilarious concept that once we learn from our mistakes, it means we don't ever fail again, but it's rather just that failure is inevitable. And once you can just relinquish the fear of that, of like trying to, who can go through life just navigating like, oh, dodge that failure. Oh, dodge that failure. Oh, I can get ahead of it. Like, no, that's, I think, where we stay stuck, why we stay stuck, and how, especially as entrepreneurs, we never pivot. We make the wrong choices. We stay stuck. We don't bring on the right people, or we just keep our blinders on. All the things we just talked about.
100%. And it's hard in those situations because there's so much going on and you feel like you need to make all these decisions, right? But you just have to simplify it and make one decision at a time. You need to make informed decisions. So use the information that you have. You can only make a decision based on what you know at the time. Use the information that you have to make the best decision that you think you can make. It might work, it might not. And then you're going to learn from it if it doesn't. But simplify the process, especially at the start where you've got a lot of different roles, right? Like you're essentially everything. As a founder or the owner of the business, you're it, right? So like there are so many different decisions to make across so many different sort of avenues. Just simplify it. Make one decision at a time, make the best decision you can with the information that you have and move on to the next one and just repeat. It's the only way to do it.
So in your entrepreneurial journey now, the choice you made, the decision you made was to get into this like human optimization, health performance space, particularly through sleep with your brand here, CS2.
Yeah.
Why sleep? And how did you go from this motorbike accident on your deathbed, major, coming to terms with your life to like, okay, this is not only what I want to do for my career, or I need to make a career move, but it needs to be around sleep.
Yeah. Look, it was, like I said earlier, it was a collection of events in the sense that so I had the accident. I knew I didn't want to be in property anymore. I previously to this, while I was sort of in my, real estate career, I was a horrible sleeper. Like I couldn't sleep. I'd probably sleep 3 or 4 hours a night. Like it was ridiculous. And I would be waking up in the middle of the night. So
sorry to interrupt you, but just for like the listener, was that just kind of your inability to sleep well, or was your career driving you to like,
no, I think
I'll sleep when I'm dead, sleep
I think
is
it was,
for the week?
it was me, probably a combination of both.
Okay.
Like it was a stressful job, but it was me too, right? So I tried a lot of different things. And it's a really inhabilitating thing when you can't sleep, because you get in your own head about it. It's like it affects sort of everything, and I'm quite into my fitness and work, right? So like everything was kind of suffering. So I tried a number of different things, a number of, I suppose, different traditional, what you'd call, sleep aids, melatonin being one. And I always found they made me groggy. Like they wouldn't always get me to sleep. Sometimes they would.
Yeah.
And then I'd wake up feeling pretty average. So I was a bit over that. And I went and actually saw, I think he was a neurosurgeon at the time in Australia. And I was like, well, look, what do you think? I can't sleep. Like, what can I take that
fix my brain?
Yeah,
doc.
that isn't going to make me feel like shit in the morning,
yeah.
right? And it's going to get me to sleep. And so he recommended it was the magnesium, which we have now, L-theanine and apigenin, right? So they were the 3 starting ingredients, and I started taking them even before I started the business, and it was a miracle cure. Like fix my sleep, get to sleep faster. I would stay asleep, and I would wake up feeling good. Like that was such a big thing for me. Like I was waking up feeling really average when I was taking these other things, and like waking up, with a kick, knowing that I've slept well and feeling well rested was a bit of a game changer for me, especially at work and with my training. So I had already been taking, I suppose, a variation of this prior to starting the business. And
are you just sourcing these ingredients individually?
Yeah. So and it was a nightmare, right? So you'd have to source them from 3 different places. They'd all arrive differently. They'd be pills, like I don't love taking pills, right? Like it's just an uncomfortable way to take it. But you do it to get better sleep. So I'd been taking those for probably 6 months, I reckon. And it had like sort of transformed my sleep. And
by transform, I just want to paint the picture here for the sleep revolution. By transform, do you mean were you getting more sleep?
Yeah.
Were you getting better quality sleep? Were you tracking it? Like,
so the benefit,
what did that look like?
The issue that I had before was falling asleep for me personally. So this solved that. So like when I'm not falling asleep, it obviously reduces the time that you're asleep. So, instead of falling asleep at, 9 o'clock, which I do now, because I'm a grandpa, it's like,
no, you're in good company, man. I got a newborn at home. I'm in bed like 8:30. Yeah.
Oh mate, I'm like, I'm in bed early. And then, I'd be falling asleep at 12 or 1. Like I would be staying up, right? So that was a big issue for me. And I wouldn't be waking up either. So essentially got me to sleep fast and kept me asleep, right? And then you'd wake up feeling good. So that was like a really big, I suppose problem.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, problem solved for me. And then I suppose in the sequence of events of changing jobs, the accident giving me perspective, I literally sat down once I'd sort of come out of hospital and sort of had to have surgery on my shoulder. Post all that, I sat down and I was like, what am I doing? Where do I want to go with my life? I've got no idea what to do. So I literally sat down for probably about 2 hours every morning and wrote a list of ideas of sort of businesses to start. And this was always the recurring one.
Really?
Yeah, because it had such an impact on my quality of life. And I knew that it worked for me, right? And I was like, it's not accessible. People don't know about these minerals that you can take to naturally improve your sleep without the downsides. So that's where I lent into it. I was like, people need to have this because it works, right? Like it's not accessible. It's hard to obtain. I was like, there's a solution and there's a gap here that I can fill. So that's how it started. And then from then, we obviously perfected the product. So we had some sort of medical minds come and sort of consult with us to get the right dosages, and we sort of added a couple of ingredients. So there's magnesium glycinate, ashwagandha, L-theanine, inositol, apigenin, and vitamin B6, right? So, what we've tried to create is this holistic combination of natural vitamins that help you fall asleep, improve the quality of your sleep, and help you wake up.
And can you shine a light on why vitamin B6 and a sleep aid supplement?
It's interesting. So vitamin B6 is a precursor to serotonin, and at nighttime serotonin converts to melatonin.
Okay,
so what you want to do, ideally, right, and this is my perspective on it, is instead of taking melatonin, which is the external hormone, because it can lead to dependency and I suppose a drop off of your natural production when you stop taking it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What you want to do is
your body will downregulate its own production.
It'll downregulate it, right? So what you want to do is try and boost the natural production of it, right? And it ties in more with your natural sleep cycles as well. So the combination of what we've got will help you get to sleep in terms of relaxing your muscles, boosting your GABA and your alpha brainwaves as well through a couple of those minerals, but boost your natural production of melatonin at the right time and sinking into your natural sleep cycle.
Ideal.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's because you're not taking it artificially to spike it here and then sort of wake up feeling average. It's you take these, and this is designed as a daily sleep supplement, so you take it every day. It's safe to take daily. You get into a better sleep cycle and it regulates your natural production of melatonin rather than sort of, taking it externally, which I feel like is not the best way to do it.
Yeah, melatonin is tricky. It definitely has its place. I say really.
I think it has its place, yeah.
Health coach Chase coming out here. Really, the only time I'll ever really advise or recommend people to take melatonin is if you're in a short-term sleep deprivation experience and like jet lag.
Yeah.
If you need that short fix, and it's not like, oh my God, I haven't been able to get to sleep for weeks.
Yeah.
That's like a deeper rooted issue.
Yeah, exactly right. And the more you take this, the better it gets. So, melatonin, like you said, it's got its place. Like if you're coming off a long haul flight and you need to get back into your normal rhythm to kickstart it, without a doubt, it works, like I don't have any issues with melatonin in those situations. But for me personally, it's like I wouldn't take melatonin daily. So I'm certainly not going to tell other people to. But what we, want to do through the vitamins we have is do it naturally, and sort of get yourself into a better sleep cycle without having to sort of, I suppose, take it externally on a daily basis at least, like it certainly has its place, melatonin, in those situations that you mentioned.
And what thus far in your new business venture here with CS2, what has been like the biggest similarity in, business that you've brought over from, like your expertise or problem solving from past professional experiences? And what has just been like, wow, that was completely something I was not prepared for?
Yeah. Look, I think people has been the transferable aspect of it. So because I was in property and I was an agent, I was always speaking to people and dealing with them. So like as, a D2C brand, it's like you're dealing with manufacturers, whether it's an actual mixer, so of your ingredients, or if it's a packager, or so like your third-party logistics. So there's a lot of negotiations that you have to do to set up a structure of your systems. So that was really beneficial in terms of just my experience with dealing with people. I think the real eye-opener is like the intricacies of, and again, this is things like you don't know until you know, like the intricacies of I suppose creating a product, right? So like there's legislations, there's regulations, there's certain certificates that you need to have.
What you can and cannot say.
Well, you can't say.
Especially in the nutrition space.
100%. Yeah. Like you should be authentic and honest because that's the right thing to do, but you also have to be, like you can't just go and throw claims on your product that aren't substantiated or untrue, right? And then there's certain certifications that, so like, GMP and FDA approval, it's like, so you need certain certificates from different suppliers. So that's been a challenge in terms of making sure that that's all lined up. So at the start, you don't know that. It's like you're sending information to your manufacturer to start a production run and you don't have the right certificates and that delays it 3 days. And and 3 days can turn into a week. And then, if you're dealing with Chinese.
And that delays somebody else and that delays something else. And
Yeah. And if you're dealing with different countries, so for example, China, which we don't anymore, but we were at the start, it's like they have Chinese New Year. So if you have a delay there right before Chinese New Year, that pushes out a month. And
I remember when my brother started Everford Apparel years ago when his YouTube channel first started. And he was like, he had to be like a couple months ahead in order to get prepared for Chinese New Year? Because if you didn't, then like the whole next season was delayed like 6 months.
So it's like, and it's you don't know until you know, right? So like that, we had a massive delay at the start when we were launching, because it's you try and aim for this day. It's like I said, you write a plan and it never pans out that way. So you have a date. Some things, a delay for 3 days can turn into a month. And it's just, I think it's navigating that. The transferable stuff was, I think, dealing with people, and maybe the commercial aspect in terms of contracts as well. I think maybe a lot of the branding, potentially, in terms of positioning to a certain market, right? So, our mission is to optimize performance through sleep, right? So like if that's what we're trying to do, you need to have a pretty clear message in terms of who you're getting associated with the brand and who you're trying to target, right? So that came through maybe potentially real estate in terms of messaging. So like you'll have athletes come on board, as ambassadors, because that's a certain demographic that one of the demographics that we want to hit is like the fitness enthusiast, and they're the people that they engage with. So that's quite helpful in terms of just a common sense way to approach that.
Sure. Yeah. Do you find it challenging at all? Because in my mind, like, who doesn't want a better night's sleep? Yeah. And that could be a firefighter, that could be a stay-at-home dad, it could be a C-suite executive, a professional athlete, anyone and everyone has everything to gain from a better night's sleep and more consistent night's sleep. Yeah. So does it get confusing at all to hit all those demographics? It's an incredibly broad issue. Yeah. But when you're, if you're marketing to everybody, you're marketing to no one in a way. It's not to say that we're limiting ourselves to those particular demographics. It's just the marketing. Those make more sense now. They make more sense now. Okay. And that's the messaging that we want to, I suppose, deploy. And I've found that is pretty widespread. Like those demographics that we have, which is essentially split into three. You've got like the fitness enthusiast, the professional, so like your entrepreneur, and the wellness enthusiast, because it's a natural alternative, right? So there are three main demographics, and you can target certain people in those groups that capture all of it, right? So there is a benefit in targeting, in being broad, but you do need to have a specific message, because like I said, if you're marketing to everybody, you're marketing to no one in a way, and you want to build a brand image around probably a more specific market. Right. Yeah. So that's what you lean into. And it's a challenge without a doubt, because at the start you're like, this is the solution that I can solve for everybody. I want everybody to know about it. But how do you create something? Because certain people won't like certain styles. And it's like our branding, for example, is very performance-based, science-based. And it's like, that's where we're skewing down, because that's the demographic that we want to hit, but some people might not like that. So you just need to, I suppose, identify markets that are suitable to your product. So for us, because it helps you get to sleep, it boosts recovery, and you wake up well, performance and athletes was a pretty natural trajectory. Huge, yeah. There's a market that will resonate with that product. So you start there. And not to say that's going to be limiting ourselves to those particular I suppose, markets, but you need a streamlined approach, right? And that's where we're trying to hit, because it's like that's our mission in a way. It's like we're trying to optimize performance through sleep. So those people who want to perform better, physically, even at work, like mentally through your focus, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put the emphasis on how important sleep is in your daily performance and give people a solution to improve their sleep and give them that next day performance. Truly, man. It's amazing to hear. And I'll share, I guess it was 2019, 2020, late 19, early 20. So I was a year and a half ish into my entrepreneurial journey at the time. And I was very much up to that point of the philosophy and of the culture at that time. Just grind, stay up late, get up early, sleep when you're dead, sacrifice sleep now so you can profit. It's like, that's a big culture around that. And thankfully it's kind of gone by the wayside. Yeah. And to like the credit of what you're doing now, and the credit of sleep in general, I made this shift. I made this choice of like, I was so tired throughout the day and I was making mistakes and I was groggy. I was like, I'm not raking in the dough right now. I'm not super happy. Right. So I shifted and I prioritized sleep first. When I made sleep my priority, and honestly then my business secondary, everything else got better. Yeah. Contrary to popular belief, like don't sleep when you're dead.
Yeah.
Sleep now.
Sleep now.
Like go to sleep.
Yeah.
Go to sleep
Mate, it's so
and wake up
important.
and be better at what
And
you do.
you know, I suppose it depends on the person, but like your productivity when you're tired is going to be horrible.
Shit.
Do you know what I mean? Like you are performing better and you're prioritizing your performance and wherever you want to get to by sleeping better. It's not like you're lazy and you're going to bed. Like you're doing this to recover, to perform better tomorrow. And it's really important that you do that because you're not going to be at your full capacity if you don't. You know, that's really, it's really our messaging and it's very important. And I'm glad because people are becoming more aware of it now.
Yeah.
You know, like people are straying away from stay up all night working because you burn out, you know, like whether you're David Goggins or me, it's like, mate, you burn out eventually. I don't know.
Yeah, even Goggins
I don't think he's burnt out yet. But
It might just be later than everybody else.
But it's like you need to prioritize that because it's like, you can't operate on bad sleep.
No, man. Well, before I get to my last question here, is there anything now that you're looking down the line of 2025 in your business and just like you're so excited for and you feel very prepared for?
Yeah. I mean, yes. So like preparation is funny. You feel prepared at different stages. So you set a goal to get to the US, right? So like for me, this year is all US expansion, and that's what I'm really, really excited about. And we feel prepared for it now, but then the next stage, maybe next year, there's going to be a new goal. So I think for me, I'm really excited about America. I think you know the product is going to do really well here. There's a big, I think, demand for it and what we're trying to do. There's a big market segment in terms of who we're trying to target. So that's what I'm really excited about. We feel prepared, absolutely, and you know, if there's days where we're not, then you pivot and you get prepared.
That's the spirit, man. That's the spirit. So the show here is meant to help, honestly, me and my audience learn a variety of ways that we can bring attention and awareness to our well-being and the multifacetedness that is our well-being, personally, professionally, spiritually, financially, so that we can keep moving forward in those areas and live ever forward. Those two words, what do they mean to you? How do you live a life ever forward?
Ever forward. When I think of ever forward, there's a quote that pops into my head, which is what I like to live for, and I think it resonates with ever forward, and it ties in really well. Which is, I'd rather try and fail than not try at all.
Ooh, yes, sir.
And once you sort of wrap your head around that, it's like I would rather be in a position where I've had a crack and it hasn't worked than not tried at all. I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. So that's what I live by, and I think that's what pops into my head when I think of ever forward.
So true, man. There's never a right or a wrong answer. I always appreciate my guest interpretation. Andy, where can my audience go to connect with you, learn more about what you got going on in the world, and connect with CS2?
Yep. So our social media is drinkcs2. My personal social media, Instagram is Andy_Carmody. Our website is www.drinkcs2. So everything's posted to the website, the socials. Look, we love to build a community, especially, you know, being a new entrant to the US. So
yeah, welcome, man.
I want as many people. Yeah, I want as many people to reach out. If you got any questions, if you want some, if it comes through you guys, if there's any inquiry that comes through you, we'll send them some free product.
Oh, great, thanks, man. Huge. Yeah.
So look,
hey, not before me though. We're waiting on the state's order to drop in here. Anything with sleep, I'm in, and especially this ingredient profile. Very intrigued by. Very familiar with everything. Yeah. Use a variety of everything, if not daily, not daily, but pretty often. But I've never had anything in a daily sleep aid in this ingredient profile and dosage. Yeah. So I'm excited.
I'm really excited about it. And we want to build a good network and community around this in the US. So reach out. You know, I'm always available. Awesome, message me, talk to me.
Well, now we know that he's got a system in place for his personal email for new inbounds, man. So blow him up, everybody.
Exactly right. Reach out. I want to talk to as many of you as I can.
This is great, man. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and your experience.
Thank you for having me.
Your perspective.
It's been really good. Yeah, really good conversation.